There is predestination, and then there is also choice and free will. And so then we have to be able to see if we can blend those two together. So let me give you an example. Predestination. If you unconsciously choose your life, you're going to end up somewhere, Danielle. Where you're going to end up is called your destiny. The question that becomes really, did I choose where I wanted to end up?
Some experts chase attention, but the smart ones build authority. You're listening to the Authority on Demand podcast, where credibility becomes your competitive advantage. Every week, we're pulling back the curtain on how founders and leaders turn expertise into inbound demand through books that position, media that converse, and strategies that actually move the needle. I'm Danielle Hutchinson, your host and Chief Creative Officer at Authority on Demand. Now, let's turn your authority into leverage. Okay, everybody, there's a moment in every high achiever's life when success feels hollow, when you look in the mirror and realize you've become someone you didn't recognize. Well, our guest today, David C. Olcott, has built his entire career around that pivotal moment, not just surviving it, but transforming it into your greatest breakthrough. As the CEO of Samurai Success and author of Swords of Illumination, David combines the precision of a samurai warrior with the insight of a master coach. It's going to be a very exciting episode. We're going to be exploring how ancient warrior wisdom can solve modern identity crises. So buckle in and let's get started. David, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. I truly appreciate it.
Hey, real quick before we jump back in, if you're loving what we're doing here, hit that subscribe button and drop us a like. We're bringing you the best authors, the most real conversations, and all the writing wisdom that you didn't know you needed. So stick around because it only gets better from here. All right, now let's get back to the conversation. Of course, I think it's going to be a really fun conversation. But before we dive into the book itself, I always have to ask, what led you down this path? What made you decide, you know what, I have to put everything I know into a book? What was that moment for you?
Two main things about, and this is going to sound a little crazy, maybe not. So I'll just go right down the rabbit hole. I don't know if you've ever had one of those feelings before, like you've been here before, like you're having those deja vu moments. Well, for whatever reason, I've had those moments a lot in my lifetime. And I started actually having a fear about, man, I've gotten so good this lifetime. I'm going to have to come back here again and I'm going to have to relearn all this stuff. So for completely selfish reasons, Danielle, I wrote that book for me. I truly did. And the reason I wrote it for me is because I knew that if I could get it out there and get it published, by the time I get back, if that's what's going to happen, then I will actually have all that information in one location. So that was the first reason. The second part is that I actually asked through prayer because I really wanted something that worked. I really wanted to bring some technology forth that really changed, because I've been in this industry for a long time, and there's a lot of promises and a lot of guarantees and a lot of people saying this and that, and it just doesn't work. I didn't want to do that again. We don't need more of that stuff, Daniel. We need something new, right? And the truth is, this isn't really new. It's actually very ancient. And so the second promise that I made, that if the universe would share this technology with me, I promised I'd share it with the world. So those are the two main reasons I wrote the book. And I hope people that are reading it are really enjoying it.
I love that. And I think it's really unique that, you really did write it for yourself. It's interesting to think about. People write it for all different reasons, but what better way than to be for you? And I'm sure that just, adds to the impact of it and the meaning behind the book in general. So amazing stuff. So, going into the book a little bit more, I noticed that you kind of write it as more of like a fable rather than traditional business book. So definitely a unique approach there, something that captivates the reader from, page one. But why exactly samurai philosophy specifically? Did you have a background in samurai training by any chance, or something of that sort, martial arts?
I actually do. I've been training most of my life in the world of Aikido, which is the art of the samurai. Well, so after you lose your weapon on the battlefield as a samurai, you were fighting against someone with the weapon, and Aikido is based upon this blending technology. So if somebody attacks you with a sword, you can't block it or kick at it because you're going to lose one of those limbs. So Aikido was developed to be able to blend with that opponent, with them attacking with a weapon. You don't have one, and you had to blend that. So that metaphor really fits well in life, because if you take that into management or business or any other aspect of your life, and someone attacks you verbally, if you attack them back, then you just have this back and forth, and who's going to win and who's going to be stronger and who has more technology or who has more fighting skills, right? Well, with Aikido, you actually can blend with someone and actually look at things from their own perspective. So you can see it from a different perspective and you can actually solve the problem together. So Aikido is a big part of my world. And just recently, in the last 3 years, I actually started Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, which is actually studying the art of drawing the samurai sword. And I'm getting to work with a world-class sensei here in Evergreen, Colorado with that.
Wow, well, that's definitely very cool, and it's cool to think about you and like, your training uniform, doing all these martial arts, but also going and writing the book and also creating an impact in your business. So it's cool to see the different faces, you know what I mean? It puts a unique character to the author behind the book. Kind of bouncing off what you just said about how your martial arts training is all about perspective. Well, Swords of Illumination, one of the main points, the central mission statement, if you will, a direct quote from it is that this book is about how you can create your experience of any event you will face in this lifetime. It's a book about how you get that feeling back, a sense of destiny. Book about closing that gap between who you say you are and how you actually are in this world. Ultimately, that relates exactly to what you were talking about regarding perspective. So, how can people take that and really ingrain that in their own lives? Sort of a sneak peek as to what the book itself dives into. I'm wondering if you'd like to speak a little bit more about that sense of perspective.
So early in my life, I met a really interesting gentleman who had a lot of impact. And one of the things I asked him about life, I was really young. I was just in my teens. And I was like, what's a worth life living? And I never forget his answer was like, a life of service is the best life you can live. And of course, at that age, I didn't know what the heck he was talking about, Danielle, right? And then years later, I was reading a book called Samurai Selling. And in that book, it said the word samurai means, loosely translated, in service of others. And I was like, holy cow, there it is. So, how can I start living my life being in service of others? And that's been my quest for the last 30, 35 years of, all right, so if I'm going to say this thing, I'm going to practice this art of samurai. Obviously, I'm not Asian. I'm not a samurai. The samurai are gone. But how can you bring that into the new world? How can you make that practical? And I will tell you, in bringing that to business or any other aspect, the coolest thing that happens between human beings is that when I have worked on me enough where I can get the heck out of my own way and I can truly be present here with you, that connection is what we're looking for, that authenticity. And that's how you can really be in service to another person. So the real practicalness of this and the reason for the book is about learning how to get the hell out of your own way so you can be in service to others, because the ego wants to be able to say, I need more, I need this, I need this. And when you're in that space, then you're constantly just looking for your opportunity to talk or bring value to the table. Where now I get to live a life of truly being present with people and really connected with them, listening to what they're really saying to me to see if I can be of service to that. And if I can, I am. And if I can't, then I can refer them to somebody else or just let them know. And it's the best use of our time.
Absolutely. I thank you for kind of outlining that for us. And it's also interesting to see how, previous books also influenced this one, the idea of the samurai as part of a thought leadership type, metaphor. I think that's really cool. But I also think this connects directly to the idea of fulfilling your destiny also, because, that's pretty much the steps that you're, advocating for in the book. So, you know, in terms of that, in the book, you describe the tension between, that predetermined destiny versus creating your own path. Where do you land on that? And, what's your opinion on that? Can we create our own path, or is it destiny itself? What do you think?
Well, the beautiful thing is about that is that both those options actually exist. So we live in a world not of or this or that. We actually live in a world of this and that. And what I mean by that is that there is predestination and then there is also choice and free will. And so then we have to be able to see if we can blend those two together. So let me give you an example. Predestination. If you unconsciously choose your life, do not understand who you really are and what you really want to do this lifetime, you're going to end up somewhere, Danielle. Where you're going to end up is called your destiny. So you're going to end up somewhere in this lifetime, no matter what you think, want, believe, or anything else, you are going to end up somewhere. The question then becomes really, did I choose where I wanted to end up? And that's where this technology really comes in, where you consciously are choosing to create your own identity, not discover it or have someone else create it for you. Then that's the life we're living for most of us. And that's going to send us about down a very different path. Here at Samurai Success, we help clients actually create that identity. And so that you are then choosing where you want to end up in that destination, that destiny. So that's a huge difference for most people who mostly live lives of quiet desperation, as you've heard that quote before. Now it's about living life with purpose, fulfillment. It's still a tough road. Don't get me wrong. It's not all uniform, unicorns and glitter and all this other stuff. It's a tough world for sure, but then it starts living it on purpose, and seeing the congruency of things makes things really purpose driven.
I like how you kind of answered that by saying like a yes and a no. Like it is driven by purpose, but it also is, kind of part of our destiny too. And I guess that's, it actually kind of represents what you have in the book here because you kind of go from practical insights to spiritual insights, both like, Newtonian and metaphysical principles. So do you use the same thing when you're working with your clients, kind of a balance of both like the spiritual and the practical tips, I guess you could say?
As a matter of fact, the world of Aikido is all about balance. So it's funny you would say that, balance and blending. So exactly that metaphor. And it's not just metaphor, it's actual practical usage of those theories and principles. So we live here in this physical plane of Newtonian laws, but there's also the quantum mechanics of things, or the spiritual laws of things, the metaphysical. And blending those two together takes you to a whole new level of anything you want to accomplish in this lifetime. For example, most of the time people are solving problems in their lives through using their ego, a source that exists here on this planet. But we can actually go out and we can actually reconnect with our soul, and that soul gives us a very different answer to very interesting, problems. So as a CEO of a company or an entrepreneur in business, your job is to, solve problems. So if you keep solving problems through your ego, it's going to create actually more problems usually over a longer period of time. When you start solving problems with your soul, which we all have access to, this isn't unique. We all have this. It's just getting really reconnected to that. You start solving problems with soul, it creates a totally different and unique experience.
Understood. I like that. And it's really cool that you continuously are drawing upon the martial arts philosophies and techniques in this sort of thing. So, really inspiring stuff. To transition a little bit into the writing process itself of the book, though, I'm wondering, it does weave together multiple storylines. You have Tom's modern journey and Yoshi's historical samurai path. So, why structure it in that way? Why include multiple storylines? What was the planning process like for that?
So my favorite author of all time is a gentleman named Og Mandino. I didn't get a chance to meet him while he was here on the planet, but our publisher was actually very good friends with him. And so I get to live kind of like that life through some of their stories together, things like this. But in Og's work, he really liked using the fable. And I love that storyline. So remember, I wrote this book for me. So I wanted to read when I got this book again, I won't remember that I wrote it, right? So I want to be very attracted to that book. So using that fable and that storyline is what's always attracted to me. And I'll tell you from another perspective, when I get some of the books that, it's telling me what to do, I've never resonated with that because I know there's this master inside of me, just like in you, that we need to start listening to. We're so busy listening to all these talking heads on Amazon, YouTube, whatever channels or platforms that we have out there. I don't believe that a loving God has put me on the planet without some resources to really be successful without having to listen to a whole bunch of other people. Those people can help guide me and point me in the right direction. But I need to be centered and balanced and really clear about my direction and my vision. And I believe that exists within us. And so that book is literally written to remind me that there is an internal master inside of you, and you need to start listening to that.
Understood. No, I thank you so much for, explaining that to us. I think it's first off very inspiring and very practical that, you have that in place. So really good stuff. But I also have to know what kind of research went into this. I mean, did you just use the research of samurai culture that you know from your own teachings, is it from personal experience in the, the coaching world, or Was there any other research involved in writing the book?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, so much of that was life experience of all those years. So it's interesting because we actually wrote the book in 2007 and 2009, but we didn't publish it until 2023. I was like, well, why the gap between those two places, right? And it
Right.
was like, well, what's going on here? Well, remember I shared that part of you. If the universe would share with me this technology and I knew that it worked, then I would share it with the world. Well, in that span of time, as I was practicing what the book was telling me, and I know that sounds really strange as an author, it's like, but Dave, you wrote this book. What if I suggested to you that that book didn't come from me? It actually came through me.
Oh, okay.
Now, there's an interesting perspective, Dana, because when I was about 9 years old, there was a gentleman on television called Dick Cavett. He was a television show host. And on that show, there was another gentleman that came on board, and his name was John Denver. Now, John Denver in my lifetime has been like the Taylor Swift of the world, the Elvis Presleys of the world, right? I mean, just this huge name that I loved his music. So if you don't know who this is, I highly recommend jumping on there. Oh, goodness.
I'll have to look it up myself.
Amazing
Next time we
artist. He
have
wrote
time.
Country Roads. And Dick Cavett actually asked him, hey, how did you write Country Roads? And it was the most amazing thing. Now, I'm 9 years old when I'm seeing this, Tanner, so I don't get it at the moment, right? But he says, how did you write Country Roads? And John looked up just really quickly, and then he looked back down, and just with that dramatic, profound moment that when somebody's going to say something really important, and he says, it just came to me. Now that has stuck with me for the rest of this life. And I've been in search for what did he mean by that? And over, I will tell you, I've met CEOs, male, female, artists, creative people, high performers, celebrities. I've had a chance to meet them and interview them. And over again, with their best moments in life, they've said this remarkable theme over and over again. It just came to me, or as if it already existed. Now, that's a fascinating concept to me because I was thinking, well, there seems to be this constant theme with all these different people for all these different generations. Where is this place that people are getting these ideas from? Where does creativity come from? In the world of science, we now know that world is the world of pure potentiality, the realm of pure potentiality. And in that realm, I understand from that place that every solution to every problem, every song that will ever be written, every situation you and I are ever going to come into already exists in that plane of existence. And me as a human, I have access to that library of those solutions if I can connect with my soul. If I can learn how to get the hell out of my own way and connect with my soul, I can get access to that library of information. Every solution that I've ever wanted to. That's how we help people really take their business to the next level, because the solutions that are coming through our clients is remarkable. And we all have access to this technology. And I know the next question is, well, how to get access to that technology? That's the book.
Okay. I was gonna say, like, do you have a step by step? But then I guess all you have to do is, open this guy up here and find out for yourself. Really good stuff here. But I always do like to shine a little spotlight on, the book itself, like the cover design, everything. Did you have any say in creating this piece of artwork right here? I'm curious to know how that came to be.
1996. I'm standing in an apartment in Denver, Colorado. I just moved here from Florida. And there's a next door an artist that lives next door. And I said, I have this vision for this concept thing. And I was like, would you mind coming over? So I dressed in my uniform, my hakama and my keiko gi, and I
Oh,
sat.
so this is you.
Yes.
Okay. Continue. I didn't want to interrupt, but that's so cool to think about. You posed for this.
In exactly that fashion. Now, it's interesting because Japan and Native Americans have always had a huge influence in my life because they're very connected warriors, right, from different, parts of the world. Yet they have so many similarities from, using swords, using arrows, using knives, horseback riding, but both classes of people are so disciplined around mastery. And that's the real theme that shows up in my life is the thing I love about this lifetime the most is being around people who are in that place of mastery. If you've ever been in that energy, that is so intoxicating for me. And I surround myself with those kind of people as much as I can. And for those people who haven't found that level of mastery, we help them create that mastery. So that's what we really do.
I love that. And it's great to know that you really do weave in that symbolism everywhere within the book and your brand and everything. So amazing stuff. And really cool that you have this here for the cover because it is captivating, but it also has that underlying meaning behind it too.
Yes.
Um, so real quick, I'm wondering, is this a standalone book? Do you have any others that you're thinking of creating? Any, or what's the next project on your agenda now that this book is out?
So when we began the project all those years ago in 2007, we actually had a trilogy in mind. And the first book was the book that you have there, and the second book, which is what we're writing right now. So it's a combination of two different books that complete the technology that we're talking about. Swords of Illumination is actually 12 swords. And the first book, you get the first six and you kind of lead into the seventh. And then the seventh all the way through the 12th is the second book. And then the third option was going to be a workbook that people could actually use and practically, do the work. We've actually turned that workbook into group sessions and individual sessions so that we actually coach people through the book about how to actually apply that information in their life.
Understood. Okay, well, I guess that's something we could all, be, on the lookout for and keep in mind also as we're reading this book. But now, if people want to get connected, if they want to, just stay up to date, stay in the know, or perhaps reach out to you for some, tips and tricks themselves, where's the best way to find you?
So one-stop shop for us is samuraisuccess.com. And
Mhm.
in there, there's over 150 videos of short clips, longer clips of all kinds of information centered around this technology you're already using, technology you already have inside of you. It's just not something you might be aware of or reminded of. So that's a great place to be able to go to really find out and dive into some more depth of this for sure.
I love it. All right, so we're gonna put the link to that in the description box of this podcast today, everybody. So we're gonna, have that available for you. Click on over, get connected, get in touch because, well, at the end of the day, you may be inspired by hearing David talk, but the only way you can really make transformation is to first learn the steps in the book and also to, get connected online and, seek it for yourself. So really cool stuff. But as we begin to sort of wrap up a little bit here, David, I'm wondering if you happen to have any advice for the aspiring authors listening, maybe somebody who, they have their own expertise, but they're hesitant to share it with the world. What would you say as a piece of advice to help them along the path?
Man, do I know that feeling. As a matter of fact, you're putting your life work out there. I get it, right? And I can't tell you how many folks I've met who are aspiring authors that want to write a book, have a book in their heads, have started a book, have multiple books. The best advice I can give to you is write the book, get it into the editing phase. And I will tell you, the biggest breakthroughs I had in the book itself was when we got to the editing phase, because so much of the stuff that was in my head, as I said it and put it on paper, then I actually read it back. I was like, no, that really doesn't make sense because then there's this connection over here, this connection. And that's when it started really flowing. So in the editing version of the book is where I found the most fulfillment from that. So get it out of your head, take the moment, commit to the time of sitting down daily, weekly, monthly, getting it out of your head so that you can get it on paper, because that's when the real magic happens.
I love that. That's all you got to do, right? Just get it out of your head, get it on the paper, actually make that first step too, right? So all really good stuff. Thank you so much for sharing that, David. I mean, honestly, this has been a really cool conversation. I think that anybody who is looking for that moment that, trying to answer that who am I in this moment question, you're the perfect person to answer it for them. So thanks so much for joining us and thanks for sharing a little bit about Swords of Illumination.
Thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Of course. And to all of our listeners today, just remember you're not here just to discover who you are, you're here to create who you choose to become. So, again, check out David's websites. We're going to have links in the description box of this podcast today. And until next time, just keep writing your story with intention, keep building your expertise with authenticity, and keep living your mission with the courage of a warrior. This has been the Authors on Mission podcast. And thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time. That's a wrap on another episode of the Authority on Demand podcast. If today's conversation sparked something in you, don't keep it to yourself. Share this episode with a founder or a leader who's ready to stop being the best kept secret in their industry. If you want to turn your expertise into inbound demand, head to authorityondemand.com to see how we help clients go from unknown to in demand. I'm Danielle Hutchinson, and I'll catch you on the next one. Now, go build some authority.